Today, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign is developing a 50-acre, 12-megawatt solar farm known as Solar Farm 2. My guests today on the Solar Podcast are Mohamed Attalla, Executive Director of Facilities and Services at the University of Illinois, and Pedro De La Barra, Project Manager at Sol Systems, the project developer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
I'm excited.
It's great to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate both you coming on the show. This project is near and dear to my heart, as all of the local solar farms are in Central Illinois. I worked for 3 years at the University of Illinois and am very proud of the progress that the university is making. To properly introduce you, you are the executive director of facilities and services at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, which means you're in charge of all of the built environment, right?
That's correct, Tim.
And that now includes renewable energy facilities. So give us some context. What's going on with renewable energy at the UofI?
Well, Tim, at University of Illinois has been working hard to assume a leadership position in environmental sustainability. And that goes back many years when the chancellor of the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, signed the climate leadership commitments, pledging to be carbon neutral as soon as possible and to work with the local community to increase resilience to climate change. And objective of that was to reduce the impact of our campus on climate change. We have a fairly large campus with 25 million square feet of properties. So it's very important for us to work with our professionals, with our community, with our student faculty, with our researchers to mitigate and minimize this impact on the climate. And also, as I said earlier, to continue to assume this leadership position globally for environmental sustainability. So from this commitment, the Illinois Climate Action Plan, which for short we call it ICAP, was developed to be the strategic plan for meeting this commitment. And this document gets updated every 5 years. As you know, we have shifting demographies, we add buildings, we have different technologies every year. So it's essential every 5 years, this document would be updated. The new ICAP, the newest one, will be issued later on this month, around October 20th. And we are really very proud with the contribution of our team in facilities and service to the development and the implementation of this document. The document speaks as part of our many activities on for energy conservation and environmental sustainability is the renewable energy component. And the objective in the ICAP 2020 is the university to be able to utilize or produce 140,000 megawatt hour per year by the year 2025. Right now, our renewable sources includes about 7,500 megawatt hour per year. The new project will bring us closer to this objective.
Indeed. So when you say you're currently achieving 7,500 megawatt hours, that's from Solar Farm 1?
That's correct. From Solar Farm 1 combined with the majority is Solar Farm 1, which is about 20 acres of land. But we also have some smaller installations of solar and other renewable sources on campus and remotely, but it's mostly solar.
How do you think of the goals of the ICAP in general?
Well, the goals of the ICAP in general are ambitious. They are achievable. 140,000 megawatt hour per year is a great objective that we're trying to achieve. It needs a lot of work, as I said earlier, between the university community, the students, the larger community, our researchers, our private partners, to be able to achieve that goal and effect it. So, and we are working on that. And when I always like to speak about our researchers, because the research that is being performed on campus and the university as a global research institution does help us and provide us with an advantage to be able to get the best and the newest technologies and applications into campus.
Yep. And this new project, Solar Farm 2, is a 54-acre, 12.1 megawatt DC project. Solar Farm 1 was a 5 megawatt, 20-acre project. So the technology is improving in terms of megawatts per acre. And we have Sol Systems here. So Pedro, why don't you give us a little bit of insight into the project specifics? You were the winner of the competitive bid for this project.
That's right. Thanks, Tim. I think here at the university, you're going to be able to see a really cool evolution of ground-mounted solar. So Solar Farm 1 is fixed tilt, monofacial, and for Solar Farm 2, we're doing a single axis tracker with bifacial modules. So that's what you were talking about. Part of what allowed us to increase capacity and also increase project yield, so that we could provide a competitive offer during the bid process last year.
And since I'm such a geek for technology, can you tell us what kind of racking system you're using? Is that Array Technologies or Nextracker, or what manufacturer?
It's a Nextracker.
Okay. Got
So
it.
we're yeah, and you can see behind me we have the posts have been installed. We're right now we're working through the process of building those torque tubes and slew gears. And Nextracker has been very helpful with people on site.
Yeah, my understanding is they like to come on site and kind of walk you through a few golden rows, get the project kicked off, get the contractors familiar with the product. 31,000 solar modules. That's a lot of solar modules. How long is it going to take to build this project soup to nuts?
So we started civil work in late July. Right now we're in the thick of it, and by before the end of December, we expect to be fully mechanically complete.
Wonderful. So back to you, Mohamed. When you think about installing on-site solar at the University of Illinois, tell us about your strategy, because you have a lot of real estate there in the South Farms. It's not that it's not, there are other uses for that real estate. Of course, there's a huge research farms area going on. And then of course you have the main campus area with lots of rooftops. Is it a both and, or what is your strategy for solarizing the campus?
Well, Tim, we're working or considering both aspects. We do have earlier rooftop installations. We have just recently completed also one project on campus. If you look at the big picture and the numbers and the overall goal, when we talk about 140,000 megawatt hour per year as our overall objective, in order to be able to achieve this strategy and these numbers, you have to be think big, really. So, and hence why we're talking about solar farms in order to be able to achieve the numbers. Rooftops, for sure, it's part of our strategy as much as possible. It's a different dynamics when we do a solar rooftop in terms of cost and safety and availability. You need flat roofs and structural integrity of the buildings and all of those aspects. So to simply answer your question, it's part of our strategy to also pursue solar rooftops, but the bigger impact will come from the solar, from really the solar farms. And as I mentioned, our overall ICAP goal is 140,000 megawatt hour per year by the year 2025. And in order to achieve that goal, you need to really think big in terms of strategy. Does that answer your question, Tim?
Yeah, it sounds like you have your work cut out for you, honestly, because while this project is going to generate 20,000 megawatt hours, that's a mere 15% of your overall goal. So when you think about other, or when you think about this project in that context, are you going to be doing other large on-site projects, or is it going to mostly come from off-site?
Well, I can answer the question again in a more broader sense. The ICAP goal of 140,000 megawatt hour per year is from renewable sources, not particularly solar. Even
Right.
though so far our biggest impact was solar. So as we mentioned, solar farm 1 total about 7,500 megawatt hour per year. Solar farm 2 will add another 20,000 megawatt hour per year. So that will make the total of 27,000 megawatt hour per year, which exceeds our 2025 goal from solar. Our 2025 goal from solar is 25,000 megawatt hour per year. So with solar farm 2, we have achieved and exceeded that goal. Now we have the remainder of renewable energy, and what we're working on now, we are doing other research with our researchers on campus to consider, for example, geothermal. And we have few small projects. It's exploratory in nature in order to see how we can improve and expand on implementation of geothermal. We have one geothermal field, one larger one in our new facility that called the campus instruction facility. And we worked on that again with our researchers on campus in order to promote and advance this. To achieve the bigger goal, and we have a number of 90,000 megawatt hour per year from renewable sources that we need to achieve before 2025. And the thinking right now is to look at virtual power purchase agreement, meaning that we consider off campus. And that's what we're working on right now. We need to seek some approvals within the university internally. We did a lot of work, a lot of research work and feasibility studies, and we did gain or obtain certain approvals within the university, but we still need to follow with the rest of the process. And if everything goes well, we will be looking at probably issuing an RFP within 3 or 4 months. But this is, as I said earlier, this is not guaranteed, since we still need to complete our studies and our analysis. And I should add that some numbers you might be interested in, Tim, is without solar farm 2, the total clean energy is about 32.5 gigawatt hour, and that works to about 2.8% of our total energy and 8.5% of our total power demand. When we add solar farm 2, this percentage increases to 4.5% of total energy and about 13.8% of our power demand. So this is, I think, some numbers could be of interest to you and to our audience.
Wonderful. When I noticed this project because of an RFP that you did about a year ago, maybe 14 months ago, right? And so it is a process, right, for the university to develop projects like this. Can you give our listeners a little bit of a taste of how the process unfolded and the various stakeholders and their responses to this?
Yeah, well, this process, I should say that it's followed a process as a P3, private-public partnership. And I think many of our audience are, familiar with implementation of P3s. So within our institutions, we need to get certain approvals in place and certain agreements. And we, as you mentioned, that we are using 55 acres of land. This land and our farms are being used for other sources, and We have had some research work happening on those particular pieces of land, and we need to have discussions and engage our researchers and our deans in this process. And obviously, we need planning time in order to allow certain research projects to be completed. So after we achieve that, we would internally produce documents and to describe the projects and get certain approvals within the university community. When all of those approvals are obtained, then we developed an RFP, and we worked with our system office in the university to be able to issue the RFP. Obviously, when we issue an RFP, you get more responses, or you get a good number of responses. Then a team will work together to analyze those responses and look at them from different criteria, obviously, in terms of timing, previous experiences, value for money, proposed schedules. Then you will end up with a short list of some interest in certain teams, certain vendors, certain partners, and we will have interviews and meetings face-to-face with the potential teams. And based on those discussions and those meetings, the team who were looking at this RFP would make a recommendation of the successful vendor. And through that, we take the recommendation to a board to approve this to proceed. Obviously, as well, this project is very close to our community, to our residents. So we needed to have discussion with the local community, with the local politicians, with the with Savoy, the mayor, our colleagues, elected officials, and the local residents to get feedback from them in terms of if they foresee any potential impact on them and how can we help. And there were few, I don't want to say concerns, but there were few positive points that were shared with us. And we were very happy to accommodate those and to engage them in the project and to include the particular precautions and the particular pieces that were highlighted and work with them. So, and at the end, we have a successful project. We are in the midst of the implementation now, and hopefully that will be able to complete it until the end without any issues.
Yeah, and to Sol Systems credit, you guys are batting 2 for 2 now in Champaign-Urbana. You developed a 2 megawatt project at Parkland a couple years ago when FIJA was very early in its development here in Illinois, the first wave, so to speak, of these 2 megawatt projects. And but Pedro, do you want to say anything more about the project from a development perspective?
Sure. I think as a solar developer, one of the toughest challenges that we face is that oftentimes in the commercial and industrial space, our clients are not fully engaged, or not all of the decision makers at the institutional level are fully engaged, and sometimes it's hard to get the development work done for those reasons. But that could not be any more different here at the university. It's very clear that from the top, this project is a priority of the institution. So that's made it really great to work on this project. University has been very helpful throughout the entire development process. They've been helpful with design review. And they've even helped us set up a recycling process for all of our construction waste. And I want to shout out to our EPC partner, Innovative Solar. They're very committed to minimizing or basically eliminating all trash and waste from the construction process. And the university has been really helpful getting us set up with waste bins and picking up all cardboard and wood waste. So that's made it a very clean construction site. I also think one of the things that is great about the way the university set up the RFP is that they included the requirement to install pollinator-friendly vegetation at the end of the project. So in about a year from now, I think we'll be able to see some of those first flowering plants, the black-eyed Susans and some others, make this a really beautiful site to look at. And we're also trying to take advantage of working with researchers in the institution, so that we might even go a little bit further than we would normally go on the pollinator side, and maybe include flowering plants inside of the array and not just on the outskirts. That's still discussion in progress, but I think there's a lot of really exciting aspects to be working on a solar project with an institution like the university.
So as our viewers can see in Pedro's background, they have set up a live camera. I'm sharing my screen now. And if you just Google ICAP, University of Illinois, and then on that landing page, you'll see a solar farm 2 link, and you click on that, and then you can see live progress of the project. If you ever wanted to see 31,000 solar modules on pallets, you see that here in the lower right of my screen, just gobs and gobs and gobs of pallets of solar modules. And then of course we see the piles, which are the foundation for the racking system. And then some golden rows here being installed, right? The first rows of modules are now being installed. So that's great progress. And I'm glad that you mentioned the net zero construction project. That is kudos to Innovatus for committing to that. So they've committed to have zero material from the construction site go to landfill from this project. And that is a wonderful goal. And I'd love to learn more about how they're going to achieve that. I don't know if you know anything about that, Pedro.
Yeah, well, they offered to work with a recycling processing facility in Indiana, where they are based. But then we had some conversations with Morgan White and the sustainability department at the university, and they offered to work with us to provide all recycling for all of the construction waste on site at the university. So yeah, we've gotten a lot of help from the university on this.
And then the university included in the RFP a requirement that whoever bids on the project has to commit to developing a pollinator-friendly site. Illinois has a very robust pollinator-friendly checklist. If you just Google that, pollinator-friendly solar checklist, developed largely by Adam Dolezal, who is an entomologist at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So it's wonderful that the UofI has been so integral to developing that checklist, which is going to be used statewide. And you know, pollinator-friendly solar is a wonderful thing. Everybody in the industry loves this because it's great for the pollinators themselves, right? Creating habitat, but it's also great for the community. It makes a solar farm a more interesting ecological habitat and visual entity in the landscape. Mohamed, I wonder, was there, what went into planning this as a pollinator-friendly project?
Well, it's part, as I mentioned to you, Tim, earlier, is when we undertake any of these projects, it's a widespread engagement of different facets of the university community, the immediate community, and the larger community. So one of the pieces that we have discussed is you have an agricultural land, and you take the agricultural land and convert it into a solar farm land. So part of the discussion, we said, well, we wouldn't be, losing this farmland if we consider pollinator plantings in and around the solar panels. So this is where the idea originally came from. And then, as you mentioned, our researchers looked at, the type of planting that we be utilized in order to be able to name the solar farm as a pollinator friendly. As you know, the term pollinator friendly means something. It means you are achieving certain criteria and achieving certain goals. It's not just because you're using any pollination. It's you have to use a particular mix. So we were very happy in the university that our researchers were able to produce this list, and we worked with solar to be able to produce that. And not only this, I should add as well that we have the landscape buffer that I didn't mention to you, which it's along the south edge of the farm along Curtis Road, when we have about 20 feet deep of landscape buffer. Also will be included trees and flowers in order, again, for our residents and the surrounding community to be able to get a value added to them from the project.
Yeah, so I put the project area on my screen now for our viewers. And what Mohamed is referring to is here on the southern east-west border of the project, they have already planted tons of trees and shrubs as a way to screen the project from the neighborhood. This is in Savoy, just south of Urbana-Champaign. And there is a large development there it's mostly housing, multifamily housing. So that is a nice benefit for the community. These are the folks that are going to have to look at this project day in and day out. I love driving by the project, which I often do on my way to Schnucks over here in Savoy, and seeing the progress that you're making. And those cameras give a great view, of course, from both, I think, the north and the south. So yes, we're taking what is today ag land and converting it to an energy facility, but it will continue to be a living ecosystem with plants and animals and insects and birds and butterflies. And that is one of the huge win-wins of solar, is that while it is an industrial facility, it is also very much a living ecosystem. And the land itself is actually going to be organic farm ground after 25 years, because it requires very little pesticide or chemical use when you plant it with native prairie plants, right?
Correct.
So it is truly a very ecologically friendly type of land use. And I'll just say briefly that, one of the objections that local communities have to solar in the Midwest is that, well, we are the breadbasket of America. And are you sure this is the highest use of prime farm ground? And the answer to that is, it is one of several uses of prime farm ground. And while it is taking it out of crop rotation, it is absolutely not degrading the land, and you could easily put it back into farm rotation at some later date. It's just steel pylons and some perhaps underground wiring. Some people use underground wiring, some use above ground. And I don't know if you want to comment on that, Pedro, but it is quite easy to completely remove the glass and steel from this facility at the end of life and turn it back into farm ground. And then the overall, percentage of the landscape in the Midwest that we're going to convert to solar farms is, at best 1 to 2%. So it's a tiny fraction of the landscape in the greater scheme of things. So we just have to keep that in mind. Were there any significant objectors to this project, Mohamed?
No, not that I know of or I can speak. There were some comments, as I said, some feedback points that we received, and we were able to accommodate. One of them, exactly what you spoke about right now, and being, bring those, pollinations and the pollinator plantings and being pollinator friendly that addressed one of them, the view and the landscape buffer that came from the town of Savoy, that was also a solution. Some discussion about construction access and what will happen during construction, and we did address that. Some potential concern was around the transformers and what kind of level of noise that could get from there, but we also looked at that, and we spoke about some sound attenuation, and that was also okay. So just briefly, that some of the comments we received, but not real objection.
Yeah. So we just have a couple of minutes left. Are there other aspects of this project that either of you would like to share with with our listeners?
Thank you for me. I'm happy.
Okay. Pedro?
I've got one more thing that I wanted to share. One other thing that we were invited to work on with the university. We were invited to participate in a capstone course on sustainability, energy, and the environment. So we're working with two groups of 4 students each. And they're going to help us create a scorecard, sustainability scorecard for this project. One of the groups is focusing on the supply chain aspects, so like the manufacturing and shipping of all the equipment to site. And then the other group will be looking at local impacts from construction and land use change. And we hope will help us get a better understanding of what the impacts are of our projects in general, and what we can do going forward to create a more sustainable solar industry.
And can you say what departments those students are coming from? Just out of curiosity.
I'm not sure what the departments are. The course is led by Professor Eric Green.
So we have, thank you, Pedro, for mentioning this, because the research and the teaching and learning value of the solar farm is great in the university. And I didn't really speak about this, but this is part actually of our overall strategy in facilities and service department in general, as implementing and impacting the live lab, the campus as a living lab concept. We're doing that in many of our areas, including the Abbott power plant and this solar farm too. So many of the students are coming from civil engineering backgrounds, and it's a multi-department course, but we've seen that many of the civil engineering graduates are interested in that, and many of our researchers in different departments of the university are very much interested in looking at the implementation, the performance of the farm, and learn something from it. It's a global objective to be able to have the ability to further develop solar panels and this installation. So this is another value added from the farm and from the project, the engagement of the teaching, learning, and research aspect of the university in that work.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining us on the Solar Podcast. I want to remind our listeners that they can see all of our content at cesnrg.com/videos or /podcast. We do these interviews on a weekly basis, so we have lots of content coming out on a regular basis. Thank you so much, Pedro De La Barra and Mohamed Attalla at the University of Illinois. We really appreciate your time. You guys have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tim Montague, your host. Let's grow solar.